Mortal Kombat 2 is now in theaters, and basically it's the tournament movie we wanted the first one to be. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So in this movie, you've got your 4 champions from the first one. They're all returning. And because Kung Lao was killed in the first one, Earth needs its 5th champion for the tournament, since obviously we didn't enter the tournament in the first one. So enter Johnny Cage, played by Karl Urban here. Now, this movie starts off with Shao Kahn conquering Edenia and forcing Kitana into this twisted father-daughter relationship. And honestly, this movie ends up being way more of a Kitana story than I expected. There's definitely a focus on Johnny Cage, but this really feels like Kitana's movie in a lot of ways, and honestly, I'm okay with that. For the most part. Now let's break this down into what I liked about this movie, what I thought was okay, what straight up didn't work for me, and then I'll dig into some spoilers. So first off, let's talk about what I liked here. The fatalities, just like in the first one here, are awesome and remind you of the game. The fight scenes are great, great choreography. The banter between Johnny Cage and basically everybody else is a ton of fun here. I gotta say, if you're a fan of the games, there is so much here for you. They packed this movie with classic fatalities, iconic moves. Yes, the crotch punch is here. And they even recreated several legendary stages from the games for some of the fights. And honestly, this movie, I think, learned from the first one. And that's why this entire movie is basically the tournament. They heard the fans, and they give us basically what we were asking for. This is basically fight after fight after fight. And I think that's pretty much what most fans wanted from the first one, and they're getting it here. Now, for the stuff here that landed more in the middle for me was okay. I love Karl Urban a lot. I even met him at Comic-Con a few years ago. I think he does a solid job overall here. But he never sold me as Johnny Cage, even in the movie. Even when he delivers some of Johnny's iconic lines and poses and things like that, it feels a little off. It's basically just Karl Urban saying Johnny Cage dialogue instead of Johnny Cage himself. Now, thankfully, because I'm a huge Karl Urban fan, it didn't ruin the movie for me or anything, but it's definitely something that I noticed throughout the film. Another thing here is almost every stage and environment is very CGI heavy. Like, you can absolutely tell most of this movie was filmed in front of a green screen. It didn't completely bother me because some of these locations look awesome, and they definitely pulled directly from the games, and some of those it would be hard to do without a green screen. But I do wish they had built more practical sets because I wanted the world to feel more real and things like that. And it's just very, very green screen CGI heavy. And then there's the story here. So we're getting back into the same thing we discussed with Super Mario Galaxy here. The story is pretty lackluster. But unlike Super Mario Galaxy, the story is pretty straightforward. There's just not much to it. With Super Mario Galaxy, the story just seemed to be all over the place and literally was just from basically Easter egg to Easter egg to Easter egg. This isn't quite that bad, but it is still heavily dependent on nostalgia, Easter eggs, and fan service, just like Super Mario Galaxy. I just think this does a little bit better. The story at least has a beginning and an end. You know where it's going. And it never feels like it's just rushing it like Mario Galaxy did. Now, here I really did not like who they chose to ultimately defeat Shao Kahn. And I'm going to explain more of that in the spoiler section. I don't really want to spoil it for you here. But I definitely have thoughts there on what they did there. So if you've already watched it, go to the spoilers. We can discuss that. I also hated the look of Quan Chi here. I'm sorry, but he looks rough in this movie. Like, distractingly rough. And it seems like the movie itself was aware of this because they quite literally in the movie make jokes about how weird he looks. Of course, most of it comes from Kano, which we all know Kano likes to joke anyways. But still, like, the jokes make sense because Quan Chi does look really bad. And finally, here's my last thing that's in the middle for me. There's just not enough Scorpion and Sub-Zero, aka Noob Saibot, Bi-Han. They're one of the coolest characters in the franchise and most recognizable, and they're basically in here for one major fight scene, and I don't even know if I would call it major, and that's it. And for me, that was just a huge disappointment, and while it didn't destroy the movie for me, it was just disappointing. And now for the spoilers. This is your final warning. If you don't want anything spoiled, skip to the end for my final rating or go watch the movie and come back for this. All right, here we go. So ultimately, the movie chooses Kitana to be the champion here who defeats Shao Kahn in the very end of the tournament. Now look, I've got nothing against Kitana as a character, but it just feels strange seeing anybody other than Liu Kang win the tournament. We've seen him win in most of the games, most of the other movies. It just feels weird not to see him win here. It's such an iconic part of Mortal Kombat lore, and it felt off to me having him not win this tournament. Now, to be fair, this movie is very much centered around Kitana, so I understand why they made that choice. It just personally didn't work for me fully. Now, one thing they did that actually I did like, and I know is probably going to divide some people, is they killed off Cole. Honestly, Cole to me was one of the biggest things holding the first movie back. You create this new character that's not in the games and put him in this movie and focus on him. He never really felt like a natural fit in the world of Mortal Kombat for me. And the fact that this movie gives him a very little screen time honestly helped a lot, in my opinion, for this movie. And to be fair, they at least gave him a cool moment before he was knocked out. His fight against Shao Kahn was actually pretty solid before Shao Kahn absolutely destroyed him by bashing his head in. The scene was brutal, and honestly, it was pretty awesome and played at one of my favorite fought at one of my favorite stages in the game. And honestly, I'm still not over the fact that this guy killed Goro in the first movie. Like, get out of here. Now, let's talk about the whole Kung Lao situation here, because you've seen him in the trailers. And I really wish they hadn't brought him back through the power of Quan Chi's resurrection powers. Personally, I think it would have been way cooler if they had adapted the storyline, or a storyline where Shang Tsung disguises himself as Kung Lao and fights Liu Kang in the tournament. I think that would have hit much harder and emotionally, instead of just bringing Kung Lao back as an evil version of himself. I just didn't like that. I wanted Shang Tsung to be more involved. That's just me, though. Let me know what you think about that situation, because I'm curious where other fans land on that situation. And then there's Bi-Han, aka Noob Saibot. Man, talk about some wasted potential there. I feel like Bi-Han and Scorpion both got completely sidelined in this movie. They barely get any screen time and honestly don't impact the story very much at all, which is very disappointing because those were two of my favorite characters from the first film, and they're very iconic. And honestly, they're also played by two of the best martial artists on the entire cast, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of Joe Taslim. He really levels up all the fights he's in. Which, speaking of which, I cannot wait for the Furious, because I need more Joe fight scenes immediately, especially I didn't get much in here. One other thing I noticed here is this movie is insanely bloody, obviously, which fits Mortal Kombat perfectly, but man, do they use a lot of CGI blood, and some of it definitely does not look great. Now, for my final verdict here on the film, I'm giving Mortal Kombat 2 an 8 out of 10. I had a really good time with this movie. It gave me pretty much everything I wanted, with only a few issues that I can mostly overlook. This is honestly the Mortal Kombat movie I wanted the first movie to be. We get the tournament, the full tournament. We get some awesome fight scenes. We get lots of blood. We get a decent amount of fatalities. And we get a movie that honestly just feels like it was made for somebody like me, aka Mortal Kombat fans. So, if you're a huge fan of the games, I absolutely recommend seeing this in theaters because there are so many Easter eggs packed in this thing that you'll enjoy. From the stages to the moves to little references hardcore fans are going to catch immediately. But if you're more of a casual fan, you can probably wait for streaming. It's not something probably spectacular in that point. It's mainly made for Mortal Kombat fans. They also very clearly set this movie up for a sequel, and I really hope we get one because there are still so many characters I want to see done in this universe, movies, universe, whatever. I mean, we still haven't got characters like Reptile, my favorite, the cyborg ninjas like Smoke, Cyrax, and Sector, and we still haven't got Bihan's younger brother taking over as the new Sub-Zero yet. And can we please get Scorpion out of NetherRealm to do some fighting? Please. Are you seeing this opening weekend? Have you already seen it? And what did you think about it? Let me know down in the comments and let's discuss Mortal Kombat 2.